So, leading off this panel is Chris Towers. Chris, so glad you can make it here to PitchCon.
How's it going, Nick? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to lead this discussion, and it's always fun when you're talking about sleepers and busts because like half the discussion is going to be really positive, and then half the discussion is just going to make people really mad because we're crapping on their favorite players.
Yeah, right. I feel like it should be like sleepers and guys that we just think we want to have success, but
guys I like, but it's that kind of like it's like sleepers and. Look, I don't dislike him.
Right.
That should be the title.
Yeah, there
of
you
it,
go.
so.
Yeah. And guys we don't like as much as everyone else.
Exactly.
There it is. But yeah, of course, if you don't know Chris Towers, you should obviously be listening to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast. Everything you do at CBS is fantastic, of course. And give you a follow. I believe it's like Chris B Towers.
C Towers CBS.
I'm so close.
I think
so close.
I think that's right.
Okay. But no, thanks so much for being here today. Michael Beller is here too.
What's up,
Michael? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Very happy to be here. I missed out on this last season, so happy to be part of it. And I totally agree that's what we're talking about here. Guys we really like and guys we just don't like quite as much as everyone else.
Right, exactly. I love the sash you got back there. Are you suggesting that you're at the Athletic?
Yeah, right there at the Athletic. That's courtesy of our grand poobah of Athletic Fantasy, Nando DeFino, had those made up for all of us.
That's wonderful. Obviously, if you guys don't know, Michael Beller does excellent work, of course, at the Athletic. You can listen to his podcast, Fantasy Baseball in 15, and of course the Athletic Fantasy Baseball podcast. It's really exciting having you today, and really thanks so much for being part of PitchCon.
Yeah, absolutely. Very happy to be here, you guys.
We have Mike Kurland here as well. Look at this background.
Oh, he's on the moon.
Oh, man. I'm so happy you could join us from the moon without your spacesuit on too. It's incredible.
It's I'm out of this world, man. Everything is just fantastic.
Well, I'm excited, of course, to have Mike Kurland here. Mike Kurland, obviously, you guys should know him. Hey, you can follow him at Mike_Kurland. Look at that smart man.
Shameless plug.
Advertisement in
Shameless plug, and I'm not even ashamed.
Obviously doing great work, of course, at your site, the Bases Loaded network as well. And Mike, I gotta say, man, I love that you got the SM7B. I just love it. The audio quality, you sound great. I love your tidbit minutes that you do. You're doing great work, man.
I appreciate it. And yeah, this microphone is my baby. I will forever cherish it.
It's good. Hey, look.
Trust me. I turned on to watch you during your power hour you put on, and I was like, ooh, I like that microphone. It looks familiar.
Yeah, right.
It's a thing.
Great.
Sorry to leave you guys feeling left out and all that, but it's a thing. All right.
I'm happy enough with my mic. I'm good.
I've got a pretty good mic.
You guys sound great.
Yeah.
You guys sound great. I'm just biased.
We have Brad Johnson here. Brad, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Feeling a little mic envy, I guess.
Yeah.
I've always just been happy
lot.
with the headset, but I guess it's I'm in the cheap crowd with this one.
So obviously you guys know Brad Johnson from his work at Rotographs, and now he's doing things on Patreon as well. So definitely subscribe to that. Where can they find that link, and where can they find you on Twitter?
So on Twitter, I'm at Baseball A Team. Have the same handle for Patreon. It's patreon.com/Baseball A Team. And you can also find me on RotoWorld, which is now NBC Sports Edge, I should say.
Awesome. Well, yeah, congratulations with that. And I'll leave you guys to it. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Nick. So we're going to talk about some players we like and some players we, really players we hate, I think is the way. I think we should just own it. We tried to be political at the top, and now that Nick's gone, I think we can just say, players that we just really, really dislike on a deeply personal level. And, I want to welcome you to the latest episode of the Sleeper and Bus podcast.
Yep.
Wait, no, hold on. Wrong. Sorry, that's confusing.
I like that we didn't bring any of them aboard for this panel.
I mean, they got better things to do. Paul's got his own panel tomorrow, so there's a lot going on. They're going to get their opportunities. Right now, thanks for joining me. Middle of the day. It's a cold day here in New York City. I don't know where all of you guys are stationed, but I'm looking at some snow for the fourth time in 2 weeks, I think. So. It just all melted yesterday, and now it's back. I hope everyone's doing well on this Thursday. Excuse me. Yeah, Thursday, not Friday.
I'm right there with you. I'm in Chicago, so feeling the same way.
I mean, most of the country seems to be. Mike,
it's sunny.
Kurland.
It's sunny and 80 where I'm at.
That's-
Jeez.
Florida, got the South Florida or Central Florida these days, but yeah, it's Florida weather.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Whatever. I don't want to be sweating right now, so
I'm not.
that's fine.
There's a nice breeze where I'm not in South Florida. I'm in Central Florida, so I have the nice breeze, and it'll be like a high of 60 tomorrow, so it gets cold. That's cold for us.
That is chilly. Break out the Uggs. All right,
Hey,
let's jump into this discussion, and I think the first place we want to start. Everybody has a different definition of what a sleeper and what a bust is, and personally, I don't like to have one specific definition, but I wanted to get a quick discussion going on of how you guys define the term sleeper. So, Brad, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so it's like a layered thing for me, really. You could approach it a number of different ways. The very short answer would be anyone who's kind of like not really on the radar at a certain point in the draft, and I think they should be. So, a player who's going 40 picks after he should be early in the draft, that's a sleeper, even if he might be the 80th player. When we're writing articles, we tend to reach a lot deeper than that because that's, I think, more interesting, more useful for readers.
Yeah. Anybody got a specifically different answer than that one?
Nope. Undervalued.
I think undervalued is generally the right way to put it. And so, I think Chris Bryant is a sleeper for 2021 because his ADP, I think, is like 131 in NFC drafts right now. And I don't know. I know the batted ball data is terrible. I know he was a huge disappointment last year, but he's fallen basically like 60 to 70 picks from the previous year based on 34 bad games. And that just feels like an obvious opportunity to buy. I don't know what you guys think of Chris Bryant.
Okay, when it comes to Chris Bryant, real quick, my quick thoughts are: we know he dealt with injury again last year, and he always kind of deals with some knick-knack stuff. So between the injury, probably bringing him down a little bit. Plus, he's never really been a big StatCast darling. If you look at his numbers, they don't really flash. He's always just been a pure, solid, good player. So I think, although maybe obviously with the ball deadening out a little bit, the power might take a hit, and we're already, we've always been chasing that high of that rookie year of that whatever he put up in terms of home runs. So I don't think he might be more of a 25 to 30 home run guy. So he's nothing sexy anymore, but I think the batting average rebounds, we get some power, and we get just more of our typical Chris Bryant. The problem is there's just that 60 game sample has so many other names looking so flashy and so like, ooh, I want him, like new toy type of deal. Yeah. And I think that's why Chris Bryant's falling. And I haven't found myself really wanting him, but it's like one of those things I'll settle for him, I guess. Like it's weird. Like I think I'm part of the problem. I just don't see the excitement there.
I don't want to be the first person to jump in because of over my left shoulder there, right?
Sure.
So I want to make just be totally open to accusations of bias. I will add to that it's been such a bad in the doldrums offseason for the Cubs that it's easy to overlook that the top half of the order is still pretty good with him and Rizzo, Baez, Wilson Contreras, Ian Happ, adding Jock Peterson. Like it's going to be a pretty good run scoring environment still for the Cubs, even if they are clearly down from the heights of a couple of seasons ago too. So I like everything that's going to be around him, even if we are already expecting some sort of bounce back from what he was last year.
Brad, do you want to dump on my favorite sleeper?
I'm not out on Brian. I'm not in on him. I find that I've addressed my third baseman by the time it's his turn more often than not. So he hasn't been showing up on my rosters yet. If I might, another guy who's kind of a similar boat that we could talk about is Giancarlo Stanton, also going after pick 100.
That's my guy.
And I know everyone's concerned about the injury risk. I think maybe that's a little overblown. It's certainly out there. It's certainly something that could sink his season again. We also know if he's healthy, he's 50 home run, 140 RBI upside. It's a huge ceiling to have after pick 100.
Yeah, the way I look at it, if Stanton is healthy, I think his floor is probably like a top 50 player.
Right.
And we saw that in 2018, the last time he was healthy. He actually played. I think he only missed 3 games between 2017 and 2018. He played every game. He had a down season, but it was still a 38 homer, 100 RBI season. I think he finished as the number 25 player in Roto League. So when I look at Stanton, I think, all right, we can ding him for injury. But if he's a top 50 player when healthy and we're dropping him to 122nd overall, that feels like you're probably doing more than just dinging him for injury. And we haven't seen any signs of decline. So totally there with you, Brad. And, the next place I wanted to take the discussion was one favorite sleeper pick for each of our analysts. I gave Chris Bryant already. Brad, was Giancarlo Stanton who you wanted to go with?
Yeah, it was.
All right, let's move on to the and I'm a Marlins fan, so I also have the homer aspect of Giancarlo Stanton. He's arguably the best player in franchise history, and I will just always root for him because he's an incredibly fun player to root for.
Yes.
Nobody hits the ball. the extent to which he is still the king of hard hit balls, I don't think people quite grasp. He has something like 75% of all batted balls over 115 miles per hour since the start of the StatCast era in Major League Baseball.
He's like a slow pitch softball hitter in Major League Baseball. He's up there doing things that no one else is doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to Mike's favorite sleepers, and we'll go in alphabetical order. So, Mike Beller, who's your favorite sleeper for 2021?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it local. I'm going to go to the third baseman on the other side of Chicago. Throw 2020 out for Yoan Moncada.
Yep.
I absolutely throw it out. He had the positive COVID test. He's been very open with how much he was affected by it, even after he had recovered for it. And he only missed 8 regular season games for the White Sox, so he was pretty much out there gutting through it. And he has detailed how much of a lack of energy he had, how much lack of strength he felt, even when he was out there playing. So I take what he did last year. I totally forget about it. And I look back to the player he was in 2019, 315, 367, 548, 25 homers, 10 steals. I think that's more the Yoan Moncada we're going to get this season. He's going pick 80, 85 or so. He's closer to Alec Boehm than he is to Rafael Devers in ADP. And I just think that is way too much of a swing from what we saw last season. And just like I talked about with Bryant, I mean, love investing in that White Sox lineup. Moncada's going to have a ton of RBI and run scoring opportunities. I think he bounces back in a big way. And come 2022, we are once again talking about him as a comfortable top 50, top 40 sort of pick.
I agree with that. Mike Kurland, how about you?
I'm kind of piggybacking off the same line of thought of just throwing this guy's season away, and that's Austin Meadows. I'm really big on Austin Meadows. Not only did he deal with COVID, but then he came back, and I believe, what was it, a hip injury that ended his season? Or was it something like that? Oh, no, oblique. Sorry, oblique. Yeah. Area. Wrong body part. The oblique that ended the season, and he never got a swing right. I mean, you saw his average launch angle increase, I think, like 7 degrees or so, 7.7 degrees. And with it came like an absurd pop-up rate. He got under the ball way more. He just wasn't himself. And how much of that can you attribute to injury, not having a chance to get right, settle in? It is the Rays, so I do have my concerns just because of that. But at the very least, you know, you're getting him on the strong side of a platoon, and they showed the willingness to play him every day prior to 2020. So I think as long as he's right, he'll get back on track and do that. And I mean, like I said, if you just look at track record, last year he struck out 32.9% of the time. That's usually a red flag, but for a guy who's a former top prospect, the prospect pedigree is there, and never striking out more than 23.4% at any level, at any stop in the minors. His prior 2 seasons prior to 2020 as well, Meadows struck out 22.2% of the time and 20.9% of the time, and hit 287 or better each of those last 2 years. The BABIP is always running around 331 or better. Last year was 288. So you see there's just a lot of not, like, again, between just not being right and not having a chance to even get going. It was just a lot of just throw it out the window and give Meadows another shot this year.
This is so harmonious. I feel like such a proud papa because I love every single player you guys mentioned. I am higher than the consensus on every single one of them. I've got Moncada as a top 75 player. Stanton, I think, is a top 80 player. Meadows, I think, is a top 80 player for me. So I'm all in on everything you just said. So hopefully we can just keep the good times rolling. And what I wanted to do now is, you know, like we said, the definition of sleeper is just undervalued. And so that covers a wide range. I think you can have a 3rd round player who's a sleeper if you think he should be a 1st round player. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but I wanted to talk about some different kinds of sleepers, break down the categories a little bit. How about the best sleeper outside the top 300? And let's start with, let's go in reverse order. Let's start with Kurland now.
Oh, okay. I'll talk about one of my favorite guys. I mean, I hate the word, like, when you termed it best, I was like, oh, because all it's going to do is set me up for failure, and there's going to be like a hot takes exposed deal with this. So my best sleeper, one of my favorite guys to go after is just Josh Naylor of the Indians. He was traded over there mid-season, obviously, what his midseason of last year. And Naylor just kind of changed a little bit of who he is. He changed his mechanics up. He actually started finishing with 2 hands on the bat versus 1, opening up more towards the pitcher and all that. And with it, you saw a lot of things trend upward. You saw the average launch angle start going upward, the xWOBA, WOBA, hard hit rate. If you actually look at the rolling graphs, they all start trending in that upward trajectory towards the end of the year, and kind of going in hand with the change in mechanics. So I'm a big tangible change guy. I see mechanical change and I see that. And then you pair all of these positive things that happen towards the end of the year. Again, very small sample as a whole. But then you take the pick. He was a first-round pick from the Marlins. He was a top 15 or 16 overall pick. So the pedigree's there. Among players with at least 100 plate appearances, Naylor had the 10th best strikeout rate with 11.5%, the 20th best in Z contact, which was 93.5%. And to give you an idea, sort of a context, Brantley, Bichette, and Rendon were guys that he was better than among these players. 15th best contact rate as a whole, which makes sense given the other and then swinging strike rate again, just kind of all just showing how good he is at making contact and not swinging and missing. 28th best in that with a 6.6% strikeout rate. So overall, Josh Naylor's just a guy. I believe the hit tool's there, the opportunity should be there. He might gain first base eligibility as well, and put all that together, and it's a guy I really like targeting. He's going outside. He's going close to pick 350, I think, right now, as of since February 1st in Draft Champions formats. So,
427
I
overall
lied.
in NFC
Nice
ADP. So, yeah, I will always root for any player who has the same basic body shape as I do as well.
He lost weight last year, actually.
He
unfortunately,
is still a big beefy baseball boy.
Well, he made us look worse because he lost the weight, and I'm still working on it.
I've definitely not lost weight in the last year. That's been. I guess I don't have the work ethic of Josh Naylor. I don't think I'm going to be a sleeper this year.
I'll be sleeping.
Yeah. Mike Beller, what about you? Top favorite sleeper outside of top 300?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the Giants. I'm going to go to the bullpen, which we know is wide open coming into this season, and I'm going to pluck Reyes Moronta out of there. I think that he just clearly has the best stuff in that bullpen, and I was talking with Grant Brisbee a couple of days ago, who covers the Giants for us at The Athletic, and he said that it's going to be a wide open situation for Gabe Kapler, and Kapler might not lean on any one guy as his true ninth inning guy all season, but I just don't think that Jake McGee is really going to push for this. I think it's going to be Moronta more than not, and maybe is the guy who can emerge from the pack and be this team's closer. The strikeout stuff is there, 30.2% K rate in 2019, 28.5% last year. Does get into trouble with walks, but he has that power four-seamer, power slider combo. That is the hallmark of a modern closer, and I think he ultimately is going to emerge as the guy here. I do think he could push up above the top 300 by time we're really sitting down to draft a month, 5 weeks from now. But right now he's comfortably outside the top 300. And he's the sort of guy who I think A, can be the guy and be the guy who locks down saves for the Giants. And B, even if he doesn't, there's enough strikeout and ratio upside for him to be someone who contributes, even if he is only getting the occasional save opportunity.
All right. I like it. What about you, Brad?
So this is a guy who I spent a lot of years kind of naysaying. He was more popular I thought he should be, and then in the last 2 years he's added some exit velocity. It's Adam Duvall. He's
the Marlins.
Yeah, so he's got a path to full-time playing now. It's kind of been a part-timer recently. The big thing that stood out, though, with his recent tenure with the Braves, max exit velocity on his hard contact, it went up about 4 miles per hour. It's a pretty big deal. It's difference between average and close to that Marcell Ozuna type level. He makes a ton of pulled fly ball contact. Just hits everything in the air. Pretty good home run to fly ball ratio. So you're going to get a lot of cheap home runs. Comes with downside. You're probably not going to get much batting average, and you're definitely not going to get on base skills. He's a low OBP guy if you're in an OBP league. So you're hoping for a mid lineup role. You're hoping for 30 plus home runs, and you can get that after pick 300. It's pretty rare.
Yeah, I think the Marlins actually have a handful of guys who are, have the potential at least to be useful in the kind of later round range. Brian Anderson, I think, is perpetually undervalued, and Adam Duvall's a pretty good choice there. I'm going to go with AJ Puck as my favorite outside of the top 300 He is obviously coming back from shoulder surgery. I believe he had Tommy John in 2018, came back from that last year, had shoulder surgery, wasn't able to get back. But this was a guy who was one of the top prospects in baseball very recently, has pitched in the majors, and it looked like the stuff played, at least in relief. And the A's have talked about him as one of the members of their starting rotation. So I'll take a flyer on the upside late for a guy who could give you a ton of strikeouts, even in a limited amount of innings. You probably don't think you're going to get more than 100 or 120 innings from him. But I think 2021 is going to be the year where 120 to 150 innings of good pitching will be more valuable than ever, because there's like 3 guys who might throw 180 plus innings this year. So I will have a decent amount of AJ Puck in the late rounds. What about the best post-type sleeper? Let's go to you, Brad. This is a one I always like, because I think AJ Puck would count for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one I struggled with. I kind of came up with a lot of different pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
I like to skew towards hitters for these types of questions, though, because pitching just feels so much like something's either going to click or they're going to get hurt, and that decides a lot of whether your choice stood out. I want to kind of give Austin Riley a shot again. And I've given him a few shots. He's flashed some skills over the years without really putting it all together for extended runs. But there, in that lineup, there's some potential if he works his way in the right role, if he gets on a hot streak, to put up some big numbers. The downside is he could be a bottom of the lineup guy. He could be a part-timer. And so there's a lot of risk and reward with that one.
Yeah, but he did cut the strikeout rate, which was his biggest issue. As a rookie, it was 37% as a rookie, and that really sunk him last year. I think it was like 23%. Obviously a small sample size, but that's closer to where he was in the minors. And if he can be a 25% strikeout rate guy, I fully agree. There's tons of potential.
He made a lot of adjustments over that 2019-2020 offseason too. Mm-hmm. So it was good to see them manifest in a way. And now we need to find out if it is enough for him to be a fantasy force.
Yeah, I like him. We did our third base preview on Fantasy Baseball Today yesterday, and he was pretty much the unanimous sleeper / breakout pick. I think I have him as a top 15 or 16 option at third base, so I'm very excited about the potential. What about you, Michael Beller? Favorite post-hype sleeper?
I'm a glutton for punishment with Andrew Heaney, so I'm going to go back to him. He got over one big hump last year, right? He stayed healthy for the balance of the season, and that has been a bugaboo for Andrew Heaney for his entire career. So we will take that as a big step in the right direction. Stuff wasn't quite where it was pre-injury, but still struck out a quarter of the batters he faced, and that doesn't play the way that it did a couple of seasons ago, but it still plays. And you look up and down this Angels rotation, I mean, it is a mixed bag of upside, right? I mean, there is a very high ceiling for this rotation if things go right, and an incredibly low floor if things go wrong for a couple of guys. And he might be the poster child for that, but I still want to buy into the underlying talent, and I want to buy into the fact that he got healthy last year and stayed healthy for what was effectively a full season in 2020. So I think he can ride that into 2021. And, maybe some of the questions in the rotation give him a little bit more of a leash, because we know the sort of player that he is and the sort of pitcher he can be when he's healthy. We saw the Angels do this last year as well. So I think that this could be another year where he builds on what he did last year, gets to a different level this season, and gives you pretty good production over that 120, 130 window or inning window.
Yeah, him and Steven Matz are kind of like the Spider-Man meme for me. Like I know they've been bad, and I know they get hit really hard, and I just keep being interested in them. I'm not necessarily drafting a ton of either, but they pitch very similarly. I believe they're both two-seam / sinker guys who work more up in the zone, and that helps them get decent whiff rates with the fastball. But they've gotten hit pretty hard, and I will always hope that they figure it out. So I think Andrew Heaney is someone in the later rounds that I will definitely have a few shares of. What about you, Mike Kurland? Post-type sleeper.
All right. A guy that I'm in on every year, seems like. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm tripling down at this point on Austin Hayes of the Orioles. he started off the year kind of rough, hit a triple slash of 203, 273, and 246. Yes, that's a 246 slug. A 239 WOBA, WRC plus of just 46. Strikeouts weren't terrible, but they were still at 19.5%. And, you know, we saw some ground ball issues. The fly balls weren't really there. He wasn't really pulling the ball as much, 36.4%. And then Hayes, we find out, played for about a week or so after being hit in the ribs with a pitch, 96-mile-per-hour fastball from Brandon Hyde, to be exact. I have it in front of me. And he played through it. He was still hitting well, but he wasn't hitting for any power. There was no, it was affecting his swing. He ultimately ended up on the IL. Returned, and when Hayes returned from the IL, he put up 3 home runs with a 377, 404, 585 triple slash, much better, with a 417 WOBA, WRC plus of 168. And the strikeouts came back down a little bit. Again, they were never bad, but down to 17.5% to finish off the year. Pulled the ball 54.5% of the time, which you want to see in Camden Yards, of course. Help generate that power. There's a little power, a little speed. Austin Hayes is just a guy that should play every day. We saw him hit top of the lineup. He kind of trended back towards the top of the lineup as the season ended as well, after coming back and having to kind of fight his way up. But ultimately, I think it's there for him. It's just a matter of him putting it all together for a prolonged period. I know injuries are kind of an issue, but I'm back. I'm here. Austin Hayes. I can't get enough. I'm a glutton for punishment.
I like it. One of my favorites is actually Austin Hayes' teammate Trey Mancini, and I understand obviously why he's he's going 181st overall on NFC ADP. There's definitely, obviously he's coming back from colon cancer, and that's a really big deal. And there's a chance that he's undergoing treatment and he's just not able to play every day or not able to be the same guy. But he's been really good in 2 of his 3 major league seasons. There was that, 2018 where he has 715 OPS sandwiched in between. But I think there was a legitimate skills breakout in 2019. I think he's a good hitter who's a pretty good bet for 25 to 30 homers if he, can play the whole season. And that park really helps. And he's going to hit in the heart of the lineup. And 97 RBI, 106 runs with an 899 OPS, not 291 average in 2019. I think Trey Mancini could be a really good value this season. And obviously I think, everybody will be rooting for him to return to that level. It would be one of the best stories in baseball. So, I always like to, have guys who are easy to root for on my team as well. And Trey Mancini definitely, fits the bill. I'll definitely be pulling hard for him this season. One of the other categories I wanted to hit was best bounce back sleeper, but kind of think we already hit that with our favorite sleepers. Giancarlo Stanton, Yohan Moncada, Chris Bryant, and
Meadows on my list.
And Austin Meadows. Yeah. Those are 4 of the best bounce back sleepers. So I think we can just skip that one. And I just wanted to kind of get some rookie discussion going on. Favorite rookie sleeper. Let's start with Mike Kurland.
This is a guy going outside the top 500, and because I'm trying to avoid a lot of these early guys. I play in leagues that usually I don't like taking prospects early. So Brandon Marsh is a guy I keep landing on. He's a guy I expect. Just there's power there, there's speed
Outfielder
there
for the Angels.
Yes, outfielder for the Angels. Power and speed combination, good on base skills. The batting average can be a bit of a question because there are not he doesn't have Adele strikeout rate issues, but Adele has to go back for some seasoning in the minors. Needs to get his hit tool under, get that all fixed up. I think that opens up the door for Brandon Marsh as the next man up. There's even places that have Brandon Marsh ranked above Adele as the top prospect in the system right now, and it just seems like all systems go. I don't see much staying in his way. I mean, you saw the willingness they had with platooning Upton as it was last year. I don't think it's going to take much for them to be like, you know what? It's been a month. We got that service time now. Upton's not doing well because, Upton comes in waves. Like, if he starts off slow, there's a chance they don't even give him a chance to get going. I think Brandon Marsh is that next guy up, and sweet, simple to the point, the fact that he offers that skill set that we look for in fantasy pretty often with a realistic ETA of being up sooner than later as well. And he's being overlooked pretty vastly in a lot of formats, just deeper formats he gets drafted. Other than that, he's a guy you definitely need to put on at least your watch list.
I like it. I'm personally pulling for Joe Adele, and that's a weirdly crowded outfield. Although, outside of Mike Trout, I'm not sure it's necessarily a great outfield or even a very good one. So, this is the kind of thing, anytime I'm talking about rookies or anytime we're really talking about playing time concerns in general, I just kind of go with Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. And if a guy's hitting, if a guy's good, he's going to get the opportunity. You know, we saw that with Dom Smith last year. Someone, not a prospect, but he hit in 2019 and he hit so well in 2020 that they were kind of forced to rely on him. So, you know, there's value in betting on talent if you can be patient. Brad, what about a rookie sleeper for you?
I went pretty deep with it, and I plucked out two names I can hit really fast. The first is Taylor Trammell, outfielder for the Mariners. They have kind of an incentive to get a look at him early in the year because they got you know, the two big name outfielders coming up for them. So it's not like they have a lot of outfield opportunities down the road. So if Trammell comes out of the gate fast in spring training, he might be able to earn a job just so they can get a good evaluation of him before they run out of spots. His skill set is kind of, it's a little bit like Brett Gardner-ish. So it's more towards speed. There is you know, some home run potential, even though he has below average pop, but you're not going to be playing him for home runs. Better in OBP than average. The other guy I wanted to mention really quick, Chas McCormick of the Astros. Presently, he and Miles Straw are in a competition for center field duty. I don't really think Kyle Tucker's going to get involved in that. So, you know, their center field situation's pretty dire at the moment, and McCormick's got some skills that, you know, could veer towards like a 15-15 home run and stolen base total with good batting average.
All right, what about you, Mike Beller?
I'm going to go to Jose Garcia. I think he ends up being the red shortstop sooner rather than later. You're really looking at Kyle Farmer and Kyle Holder right now. And got a guy like Luis Castillo. You got a guy like Sonny Gray. I think they're going to want that glove of Garcia's on the field every day sooner rather than later. And so I think he's going to have the opportunity. And that's something we're talking about a lot with these guys is you want that playing time. I think Garcia ultimately is going to have enough of it, this season to make a real fantasy impact in 2021. And I think he can be a guy with the expected time that he'll get, or at least the time that I expect him to get once he does get the call, to be someone who pushes up toward the 12 to 15 homer range. And, you know, wide open NL Central, the division that has done absolutely nothing this offseason before St. Louis made the big trade for Nolan Arenado. I think really any of those four teams, St. Louis, Milwaukee, the Cubs, and the Reds are capable of winning it. And so Garcia definitely makes the Reds better with him out there than with Kyle Farmer and Kyle Holder. No offense to the Kyles. So I think he's going to get that opportunity and can capitalize on that opportunity once it's there for him. And again, you can't really stress this too much with the shortstop. Once he's there, the glove's going to keep him in the lineup. So he's going to have plenty of leash from David Bell.
Apologies to Pirates fans.
Yes,
they're not going to compete in the NL Central. Yeah. I'll go with Davey Garcia, currently going outside of the top 300, starting pitching prospect for the Yankees. He's competing for the number 5 spot in the rotation. I don't think it's guaranteed yet. I think there was a quote from Aaron Boone saying that, you know, he's going to have to earn it. But 4.98 ERA in his first taste of the majors last year, 6 starts, 34 and a third innings. I think it was a pretty promising major league debut, though. He, you know, got the walks under control, obviously a small sample, but that was kind of the biggest thing holding him back as a prospect. There are questions about how he'll, fare as a long-term starting pitcher, given that he's, 5'9", listed at 163 pounds. That's pretty tiny for a major league player. But I think the stuff is really good. He's got a lot of strikeout potential. And this is definitely a rotation where even if he doesn't break camp with the team, there's going to be an opportunity at some point. The Yankees, really only have one reliable starting pitcher. He's really, really good. But after that, there's going to be an opportunity if Davey Garcia proves that he's ready either in spring training or early in the AAA season. So he's one I really like. That was a very positive discussion. Very proud of us. Talked about players we like, made the case for them. Let's talk about the busts, the second half. And look, it's not a I don't like this guy, as we said earlier. It's not a this guy's going to stink. You can be a bust and be a top 40 player, if you were being drafted as a top 5 player. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you dislike the player. And, frankly, I had Fernando Tatis as a bust last year. I don't know about you guys, but I thought there were some risks. There's some risk in the profile, batted ball data didn't quite back up the production. Lots of swing and miss, lots of strikeouts. Whoops. He pretty much answered every single question he could possibly answer. And look, when you're talking about busts, you're going to miss, and you're going to feel bad about it. You're going to feel worse than when you miss on your sleepers for sure, because a bust usually means someone made you look bad. But frankly, I hope every single one of my bust picks is wrong. So let's go around. One best pick from each of you, your biggest bust risk for 2021. And let's start with Brad.
So there's a lot of different directions we can go. I was focused pretty early, and this is a guy I really like. I think he's probably going to have a really good season. A lot of people believe this. Jose Ramirez is in a lineup that has.
See, we're going to fight already.
He's in a lineup with nobody.
Yeah.
It's a pretty empty offense. He's had struggles in the past, and so we know slumps are part of his game. And he gets a little too into launch angle sometimes, so this slightly deadened ball that we're dealing with could have an impact on him too. Again, I think he'll probably have a really great season. He'll steal bases, we know that, and that's extremely valuable. He'll do it with at least some home runs, but he is also going pretty early in drafts, and so if this is one of those years where he slumps 4 of the 6 months, he's going to really have to hit those other 2 months.
He is not going early enough. That is my take.
I'm completely open to that take too, to be honest.
Yeah, I have him 7th overall. I have him with the same salary value as Fernando Tatis. And you're right. The dip in 2018 to 2019, it was basically a full calendar year. I think it was 134 games where he had a sub 600 OPS.
Yeah.
It was really bad. And it's rare to see that kind of thing from a 25-year-old. And it's definitely a red flag, but even with the bad lineup, I just think he's so good. I respect it, but I disagree.
This is the thing with busts, especially if you're reaching for those early ones. There's definitely going to be, it's narrative based, I'll say.
Yeah.
It just depends on what narrative you seize on as an analyst, and where you expect it to go from there.
All right. What about Mike Kurland? Who is your biggest bust of the 2021 season?
I'm doubling down on a guy who made me very wrong and right at the same time last year, and he's probably gonna do it again. It has to be Alberto Mondesi, right?
Oh, yeah.
We all have to be it's the easy picking, it's the low hanging fruit, but I don't care. I just gotta express I can't do it, man. A lot of it is we know the speed is so elite that it makes up for a lot of the holes in the game, but the lows are going to be there because of how volatile he is when it comes to plate discipline and all that. So if the lows are going to be there, what if the highs don't come with a long enough track record, or over long enough time? So we get 6 weeks of lows like we did last year with Mondesi, 3 weeks of highs. But then what if now that we have a longer season, those 3 weeks could be followed by 8 weeks of lows? And then how much of those 3 weeks did you start them if you're in weekly formats, especially deeper formats? You're mentioning NFC leagues. Mondesi, those are mostly Monday through Friday. You set your lineup twice a week. I guarantee you, the first week of the 3 weeks of him being hot, you probably sat him unless you couldn't because you need stolen bases. But Mondesi was a guy that you probably didn't get all of the good stretch. You definitely started him for most of the bad stretch. And I think that's just, I know in Roto, it's all about at the end of the year, how they finish. But I trust in the lows being there. I just don't trust in the sustained highs being there. And now you add Benintendi and Carlos Santana into the mix. Who says he bats second? Who says he bats top of lineup? Now you're taking at bats away from a guy who might need him more. You deaden the ball a little bit, which might help him because you give Mondesi a ball that doesn't go as far. He'll probably just beat out those runs anyway. He'll beat out those poorly crappy hit balls. But at the end of the day, Mondesi's a guy that I can't do it. I can't take the risk.
Can I jump in real quick?
Please.
Another issue with Mondesi, just to pile on.
Yes, do it.
When you pick Mondesi, you're going all in on his stolen bases. And if that does not work, it can ruin your roster. If you draft a bunch of stolen base redundancy and it does work, then you got all this redundancy that's, you wasted assets in the draft. So going with him in the second round usually is about where you can get him. Sometimes third, depending on your league size. You're taking a lot of risks that he's going to be the guy who provides your steals.
Yeah, Mondesi currently going 23.7 in NFC drafts, and that's it's not, I don't think, the worst pick, because my bust pick will be a little higher than him, but there's a non-zero chance he's not a major leaguer for the full season. Like, there's a non-zero chance that he has a 260 on base percentage through the first 2 months of the season, and they just can't live with having that in their lineup. And he's got a really long track record of injuries. Last year was really the first time in his professional career that he's managed to avoid missing significant time. A lot of that came in the minors, so he doesn't really get dinged for it. But I think that part of the risk profile is being underrated as well. Michael Beller.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, didn't he also, prior to the shutdown, Mondesi was actually coming back from a shoulder injury as well?
Yeah.
Like, he was actually he was gonna be delayed coming into the season from reports.
Mm-hmm.
But fine, I'm gonna give a quick name. Trevor Story is a guy I'm kind of concerned about in the first round, solely based on the fact that I think he gets traded entering his final year of the deal. 28 years old. They're trading all the pieces around him. Trevor Story is a guy I'm kind of afraid of. I call him sort of a bust considering his ADP. There you go. That's a little less obvious.
All right, Michael Beller. Let's hear your biggest bust candidate.
Yeah, I can't get on board with Trevor Bauer where he's going. I think that there's way more risk to him than is being assumed in him being sort of the guy who is just slotted in at 4 after DeGrom, Cole, and Shane Bieber, who I think totally deserve being looked at as the comfortable top 3. I mean, we're talking about a guy who has been awesome, totally lights out when he has been at his peak. But he's been at his peak for a season and a half for the 2018 season and then for last year. And there's been just as much, if not more, of him being more of an SP3 type. And I think that there is a lot of risk associated with Bauer at ADP, late first, early second round. There's a ton of opportunity cost associated with Trevor Bauer, because in theory, if you do take him, then you're not taking Yu Darvish, Lucas Giolito, Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, Aaron Nola, Luis Castillo, Jack Flaherty, guys like that, not to mention all the hitters that are going in that range with Trevor Bauer. And I think we at least need to acknowledge with him and with a lot of other guys who lived in the Central Division last year that they got to see a lot of Pirates, a lot of Royals, a lot of Tigers. I know we've all talked about this a bunch. I think if you lean on it as a huge entry point, it can be a little bit overstated, but it is still something that is worthy of being discussed. And now we're talking about him making the move to the Dodgers. I just think that there is a lot of risk here that is just not being baked into the cost whatsoever when you're talking about taking him with somewhere between the 12th and 16th overall pick.
Yeah, and part of it for me is like, we just did this. You know, we literally in 2019, he was one of the top 5 or 6 starting pitchers off the board, and he kind of was a disaster for half the season. He was okay in Cleveland, but the meltdowns and 4.48 ERA, like, you're going to get a lot of innings, you're going to get a lot of strikeouts. I mean, there's a relatively high floor, but there is there's a decent chance that he just kind of messes up your ratios kind of because of those innings. You know, if he's the guy who throws 200 innings and he's got a 4.5 ERA and everyone else is throwing 150 innings, the negative impact of that is going to be greater on your ratio. So I think there is risk there. I think I have him as a top 8 or 10 starting pitcher, so I'm a little lower on the consensus. But the guy I'm most worried about among the, quote unquote elite starting pitchers is Walker Buehler. This is I've been doing a lot of research about like what causes pitchers to bust, what warning signs are there. And I think it's pretty obvious that guys who have done it before, guys who have been top 50, top 100 overall players, guys who have thrown 200 innings or 180 or 190 innings, whatever cutoff you want to put on it, they fare better and they are better investments. They bust less often. Well, Walker Buehler's never hit 200 innings, even if you include the playoffs. He maxed out at 182. Last season, he made 8 starts in the regular season, 36.2 innings. Postseason, he made 1 start, I believe, of more than 5 innings. Only 4 of his 13 starts total were more than 5 innings. I don't think the Dodgers are going to be that extreme with him, but you're looking at one of the more obvious workload risks in the early rounds of starting pitcher. And he's not like, he's very good, but you're not getting 12K per nine from him. You're getting a very good whip, almost certainly, and you're going to get some wins. But I just think there's a chance he goes out and, throws 130 good innings, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're paying a top 20 pick on average for him right now, I just think that it's an obvious fade for me. The upside just isn't there, and I think you're chasing upside as much as anything.
Two Dodgers pitchers. You guys picked two Dodgers pitchers here. Like that's rough. I mean, but it's an embarrassment of riches over there. I mean, they have 7 guys that can go anytime. Which
could especially work against Buehler more than Bauer.
And
right?
Buehler's a
Consulin in May.
Yeah, and then you have Buehler, who's a self-admitted slow starter. Last year, he talked about it. I mean, he showed out in the playoffs, looked amazing, but
he's really good.
It took him a point to get there, though. So maybe, honestly, he might be a good buy low guy early in the season type of deal.
Yeah. I think we kind of hit on biggest bust risk from the top 20 in ADP there, but if anybody has any other names they want to throw out there, we've got Jose Ramirez, Walker Buehler, Trevor Bauer, Trevor Story.
I think you can have a similar conversation to the Bauer one with Yu Darvish too.
Sure.
He's a guy. He's moving teams. He gets to bring his personal catcher with him, which is nice, I guess. But moving to a more difficult division, and gonna have to face those Dodgers now instead of all the soft teams. Visit Coors Field. I like Darvish. I think he's maybe a little early from just that one awesome season. There's a lot of regression that should be baked into your expectations. Still going to be a good pitcher, much like Walker Buehler, though. Might not be huge inning total. Padres have some potential to hold him back a little bit so he's healthy for the postseason.
Yeah, one of the things that's really shocked me in looking at Yu Darvish's career, he hasn't finished as a top 100 overall player in Roto since before 2020. He hadn't finished as a top 100 player since 2013, which is kind of stunning. He wasn't far off in 2019, and he only won 6 games. If he had won 10, maybe he gets there. But that was surprising because I view him as kind of a steady guy, and he really hasn't been that. So there's definitely some risk with Yu Darvish early on. Any more in the top 50 that you're really worried about? Top 50 in ADP.
Kevin Biggio stands out to me.
I think that's the obvious one for me.
Yeah. And Luis Robert, I have a little bit. It's similar to Mondesi with me with Luis Robert, just that volatility. But the tools are flashier, the pedigree is there.
It's a different type of volatility.
Yes, I can understand. Right. I can understand taking the risk more so with Robert than it's Robert. I apologize. I hate doing that with Robert than Mondesi. But yeah, I'm scared of. He's not a bust candidate necessarily, but Biggio is just the obvious one. Again, low-hanging fruit. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, Kevin Biggio might be the single guy whose fantasy value could be most impacted by the deadening of the ball because he is, I look at him as someone who, and this is kind of a complisalt, he is someone who gets the absolute most out of his physical tools. He has maximized his hitting approach to hit the maximum number of wall scraping home runs that he can. I think he had one of the 10 lowest average home run distances in baseball in 2020. He's a fly ball guy, so you're always going to get, a relatively low batting average. But if he's losing 10% of his home runs and all of a sudden he's more like a 16 homer guy, he's not going to keep, he's going to get caught stealing eventually. He's 20 for 20 in his career. So you figure, well, maybe he's a 20 steal guy. You probably regress him more to an 80% success rate. And then you're looking at maybe he's a 15 to 16 steal guy, probably going to hit at the bottom of the order. I just think there's a decent chance you're looking at a 240, 15-15 guy with mediocre counting stats. And that might not be that different from Scott Kingery, who everyone was excited about not too long ago. Well, I guess it was 2 years ago now. So maybe a little bit long ago. So yeah, Biggio is a guy I'm definitely avoiding. I have him more in the 90 range where he's going 60th. Any other guys you're obviously avoiding at the top of your drafts?
I wouldn't call this an island. It's more an archipelago because I think I've got some people with me out here. I'm not a JT Realmuto guy, and it's got nothing to do with the ability. It's got everything to do with the false idol of positional scarcity. And I think if he played any position other than catcher, we'd be talking about him much lower down the charts. And he's still going to do what he does. I mean, we know that those numbers are going to be there for him. But when we're talking about taking a guy as early as we're talking about taking JT Realmuto, and I'm looking at the other guys who are in that range, and I see some big-time pitchers like Castillo and Flaherty. I see some hitters who I think just are flat-out better hitters who are going to produce a little bit more like Eloy Jimenez and Xander Bogaerts and Corey Seager after the season he had last year, looking like he's going to achieve the potential that he had a couple of years ago. I just want more out of a hitter at that spot, and I'm not willing to sacrifice what I think Jimenez and Bogaerts are as hitters just so I can check off the catcher box and say I've got the best catcher in the league. I think it's all about positional scarcity, and I'm not willing to do that at that stage of a draft.
Yeah, top 35 pick in ADP right now, that's a lot. I do think if you were just drafting a regular roto lineup but with no positions, he's probably the only catcher who would get drafted, at least as a starter. I'm not sure anybody else, if you didn't have to worry about positions. Maybe Will Smith for some upside, but that's the one case for him is just he's so much better than everyone else at catcher. Yeah. But 33rd overall is way too early for him, and I'm not totally sold on Eloy Jimenez. I think he has a really narrow path to walk because he's a relatively high ground ball rate guy. He's been a relatively high strikeout rate guy. And so he's really got to maximize the balls that he hits in the air. And if he continues to be a 24 to 27% home run to fly ball rate guy, then yeah, he's probably going to be a pretty good player. He's going to hit 35 homers and drive in a bunch of runs and hit for a decent average. But I think there's a chance that if he's a 20% home run to fly ball ratio guy, now you're probably talking about more like 30 home runs and maybe a 260 average, a 270 average. And I just think the most likely outcome for Eloy Jimenez probably doesn't look that different from a Michael Conforto. And Conforto is going 40 picks later on average. So that's the issue for Eloy Jimenez for me. And it's sort of similar to like a Marcell Ozuna, but Marcell Ozuna has a little bit longer of a track record. Brad, do you have anyone to add in this range?
Yeah, I have a few. And just to pile on to Jimenez a little bit too, your point about the home run to fly ball ratio is a good one. You're at his ADP, you're expecting him to be kind of Aaron Judge-like. Yeah. And he might be. That's possible. It's in the solution set. But I'm not ready to make that bet in most cases. I'll probably get a share or two.
And he's a low OBP guy.
Yeah, he's not an OBP guy. A guy who he's been in this range forever. Whit Merrifield. He's been slowing down a little bit. He doesn't do anything StatCast wise that's exciting. He's a wall scraper guy with the home runs. There's a lot of ways for kind of the bottom to fall out of his profile at one of these years as he's getting up in age, and so I'm just going to let other people take those gambles until it happens. Someone who I'll probably get a lot of critique for naming is Bo Bichette. I like Bo Bichette a lot.
Overall right now.
Yeah, that's really early for a guy who I kind of comp him to early career Francisco Lindor. So there is evidence that he can contribute in every category. There's also some evidence that maybe he's not really a stolen base guy. Maybe he's more of a doubles guy than a home run guy. He's had some fortune with his batting averages that doesn't necessarily have to hold for every individual season. So there's definitely pathways where he's more of like an 8th or 10th round performer going in, around pick 20. He could also, like Lindor, just snap off a huge season and make everyone really happy. So this is another one of those bust discussions.
You're paying for the ceiling.
Yeah,
I think at 23rd overall, and I think there's too much just extrapolating. Well, he's done this in it's only like 50 something games.
It's not many games now.
So yeah, that's too much for me. We're going up against our time, but How about let's be positive again to close it out. Give me a popular bust candidate who you're not afraid of. Let's start with Mike Beller.
This was one I struggled with. I tried to look and find some guys who kept coming up on bust lists, and I wasn't really finding anyone that was, a consensus. You guys just made it kind of easy on me, though. I am not afraid of Eloy Jimenez whatsoever. I mean, this is what he was supposed to be. And it's only been 177 games. It's been about 730 plate appearances. But for a guy who has the prospect pedigree that he has, who pretty much flew through the minors, who hit every single box that he was supposed to along the way, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt when he then comes to the majors and performs just the way we expected at just the level we expected pretty much from the word go all the way through last season. So I think your concerns with him are logical and they make sense, and it could redound against me. But I do think that this is someone who is just a full-on star and is going to consistently outperform some of the metrics that jump up as red flags. Not afraid of him whatsoever at his ADP.
How about Kurland? Yeah, this was one.
Yeah, this was a guy that I wasn't even sure I really wanted to have any part of, but the more I look at him, the more I like him. Is Trent Grisham, and he's pretty much what we're hoping Kevin Biggio could be. Like, I think 2020 is almost more of a floor. I mean, he put up 10 and 10 in a shortened season. I expect Grisham to lead off more days than not. I know everyone's like, well, he's bad against lefties. He's serviceable against lefties. It's a little overblown. He's a career 250 hitter with a 99 WRC plus. Small sample, yes, but he's actually hit for a better batting average against lefties than righties. So all things considered, technically he's the better hitter if you go by batting average. Don't look at the OBP and all the other stuff. Just look at the batting average to fit my narrative right now. But in all seriousness, though, at the very least, I expect him to play every day. But yes, we saw Grisham move down the lineup against lefties, but that's fine because he's still playing every day. Should continue to lead off against righties. His OBP is great. Yeah, the batting average is a little bit of a question, but I think the power and speed makes up for that. Given you should ideally, at least in my opinion, I usually address batting average earlier so I can take on more of a toolsy player here in the middle of the draft. And I think Grisham's a good player to kind of give you a little bit of everything that you're looking for fantasy purposes.
All right, Brad.
Yeah, so we talked about Stanton a little bit in the sleeper side of things. His teammate Aaron Judge is going about 50, 60 picks ahead of him. Similar skill set, and I'm not out on it. It's we also just talked about Eloy Jimenez, and you can get Judge after Jimenez. You're deciding which risk profile, like more the recent injuries or the young player who might run into a pseudo sophomore slump. I like Judge. I like taking risks on position players who have had injuries and are labeled injury prone because I tend to find it is overblown.
Same. And that's why I love Giancarlo Stanton. That's why it hurts me every year. I don't know how many people are calling Ian Anderson a bust, but it feels like there might be. Yeah, I think there might be some like, is he really a top 100 pick based on 36 innings? Are we really pushing him up this high? And I think starting pitching as a whole is going too early this year. I think that's a whole bugaboo for me. The results on starting pitchers early in drafts over the last couple of seasons have been really bad, worse than the long-term track record. And yet we're paying more for them than ever. But I'm being a hypocrite because Ian Anderson, he's the 31st or 32nd SP off the board, I think. And I have him 24th. For me, you're talking about a guy who the prospect pedigree said fastball and curveball are the bread and butter for him. And then he comes up in the majors and has a changeup that, small sample size, looked like one of the best pitches in baseball. Huge whiff rates, great results on batted balls. He was dominant in his time in the majors, including the postseason. Ian Anderson is a guy I'm willing to buy in on ahead of ADP. I don't think he's being drafted too early. He's one of the few pitchers who I am really, really willing to reach for. So That's my option. And here's Nick.
Hey, what's up, Nick?
What a great panel. First of all, Brad, Darvish is amazing. Stop this. I'm not going to accept this for a second. Ian Anderson, very good, though. I love that. It's just the innings and all that kind of stuff. But really, this was a fantastic panel. I can't thank you guys enough for being a part of this. I certainly am going to be changing some things now because of what you guys just said. So really, thank you all for being here. And yeah, that was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Good
everybody.
stuff. Thanks for doing this, Nick.
Yep,
Thanks for
appreciate you having
everybody
me.
for being here. And, make sure you contribute to, was it Feeding America? It's the
Feeding America, correct.
yeah. Make sure you make a contribution. It's for a good cause. And thanks for everybody on the panel.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care, guys.